So I had 6 weeks to prepare for this 2-hour talk, and I got through half of my notes. The other half are so cool, including explaining exactly what is a contemplative, and we go to an authority. What exactly is samadhi? Go to an authority. What exactly is intelligence? How many kinds of intelligence are there? All of this coming from a commentary on Shantideva. Didn't have time for it. And then the other half of the notes was the nature of the mind and its role in the universe. Didn't get there. And this was after I pared down my notes, and I asked Aaron at the last moment, in case I run out of material, could you bring the supplementary notes? And they're so cool. And I have 5 or 6 pages? And so if you'd like to do a midnighter, why not? You have something else you wanted to do? So the reason it gets so much is because so much material is I find it so incredibly thrilling. And some of this stuff I've known for years, or even decades. I started studying physics about half a lifetime ago, 34. Oh, that's more than half a lifetime ago. But it's so thrilling, and it's so enormously important. Facing the crisis that we are right now as humanity, for those of you who would like to see human civilization stay a while, because we're not doing enough yet. And I do believe that Buddhism has a lot to contribute here, of just challenging our way of thinking about things. And one of the most brilliant writers I've read recently, he's noted as an authority on the Metacrisis. And he defined it in a way, I won't go into it now, this would be very short, but really very astute thinking. A younger man, in his 40s, I think. But really his analysis of Metacrisis and what might be done about it, really quite impressive. I've read him. And he commented, he is an authority on this, said the only way that we're going to be able to find a way through this and still survive as a civilization is going to be by a shift of consciousness. Not just more technology. We have all the technology we need and we're not using it. We're not using what we already have because of greed and then hatred and then ignorance. It comes down, and we covered that before. So what I'd like to do now, in this very precious time we have together, before I dive down under the surface of the ocean, come up in 6 weeks, is to go right into a core practice that many of you are familiar with, but let's again encounter it as if for the first time, that enables us to make authentic, replicable discoveries about the nature of mind, and not fall prey to all of those, some of them very interesting objections, and not silly ones. A couple were silly, but many of them were not. And it has to do with objectivity. This is a prelude, and it will be short. The theme of objectivity. You're not thinking straight. You've lost any sense of objectivity. We say that, right? You're no longer being objective. I can't listen to anything you're saying. You're no longer objective. You know that, right? If a scientist is not objective, then you're not a scientist, right? You can be a philosopher, you can be a religious bigot if you like, or you can be a gardener and be a total, But there are 2 types of objectivity. And one is the type of objectivity that our first philosophy that said introspection doesn't exist. And objectivity is where there's a very clear separation between the observed and the observer. Tomorrow's way over there, and if I die right now, she won't die. If she dies right now, I won't die. So in that way, we're independent. She's hungry, I'm not hungry. She eats, I don't get full. So that's a clear separation, right? And I can ask her questions and I don't know what she's going to say. So that's one kind of objectivity, right? But then we see that breaks down when you're observing your own mind, and it breaks down when you're looking at the fundamental constituents of the physical world. It doesn't hold, you can't do it, right? So Niels Bohr, I can only paraphrase a quote that really caught my attention. He said, what we call real is made up of things that are not real. And unless you are utterly shocked by quantum mechanics, you haven't got it. So That first theme, that's now up for grabs. Useful in some ways and impossible in others. Impossible in others, right? But the other type of objectivity, which is praised in science and praised equally in Buddhism, and I've mentioned it already, to be a suitable recipient of Buddhist teachings, you must have three qualities. You must be unbiased, which means objective, open to hearing about evidence that challenges your most cherished beliefs, open to evidence, open to reasoning that makes you think again, maybe even reverses your whole outlook on reality, as in 4 revolutions in outlook, that you can never look at human existence again in the same way if you really fathom the first of the 4. Because for those who've not, life is kind of like, you only got one life to live, what are you going to do? You know? And then that whole you is just burnt to nothing with this new vision of reality, this new radical revolution, a total 180-degree turn. You need to be open to that. Niels Bohr was open to that. Heisenberg said, we feel the very ground beneath us is shaking. It was like almost terrified. What are the implications of this? And a lot of branches of science have since then have tried to contain it, to make it not reverberate throughout all the other branches. But that's a lost cause. It's going to reverberate. It's already influencing biology, it influences chemistry, it influences technology, it influences brain activity. Quantum mechanics, you can't ignore it now in brain activity. They thought it was too large and warm, no, it's not true. Quantum mechanics touches everything, and it shakes everything up. And if you're open-minded, you say, okay, I have to face the facts. And the same thing is in Buddhism. So many of our beliefs, our convictions, our values are based on untruths, and we suffer as a result. And so this objectivity of being free of bias, free of prejudice, open-minded, boy, that's hard. It's really, really hard. Especially if you've invested your whole professional career in something that's now being overturned by empirical evidence. It makes your whole career look like a joke. That's tough. Neuroscientists have a real hard time with this because they're so deeply embedded in materialism, and they're holding on for dear life. But you'll see in my auxiliary notes, they're about 150 years outdated, because neuroscience is by and large rooted in 19th century mechanistic materialism, which went out with a horse and buggy, and it hasn't dawned on them yet. So enough of that. We are seeking to cultivate something very difficult to do. And those of you who have been here for months or years, you know this. And that is, internal objectivity is extremely difficult. To be resting in the stillness of awareness and generating a platform of internal objectivity from which you can observe the thoughts of low self-esteem, the thoughts of sadness, the thoughts of grief, the thoughts of fear, of anxiety, and so forth, and see them come up and not be moved and sucked into the undertow of these movements. But like images some of you have seen, the lighthouse out on the rocky knoll, and a wave about as high as the White House comes and engulfs the White House and then falls back into the sea. It's that lighthouse of resting in the stillness of awareness, and from that utter imperturbability, free of attachment and aversion, hope and fear, witnessing the waves of emotions and memories and thoughts, hopes and fears, anticipations, images, and observe them come and go, and come and go, and come and go. And be freed of the tyranny of the mind. Because there's no worse dictator, not Mao Zedong, not Stalin, there's no worse dictator than the mind. It gets us every day. Other dictators, they only touch you now and then perhaps. But the dictator of the mind tyrannizes us every day. So to cultivate that inner stillness, be able to witness whatever comes up, and then release it without appropriating, without dodging, without cringing, without lunging, without being enveloped. It's a skill that no amount of money can buy. And no amount of academic training will give it to you. And so we have our laboratories. And that's where the real work is done. Develop that inner freedom. And as long as we're directing the awareness outwards, we're looking right there into the field of samsara and probably planting more seeds. And as soon as we turn our awareness inwards upon awareness itself, we're looking right at nirvana. It's that close. The actual nature of your mind right now is nirvana. And when you're looking right at awareness in those interludes between thoughts, you're looking right at pristine awareness. It's nowhere else. It's right there where you're looking. But there's a veil that's called obscurative reality, and obscurative reality is called your mind. But if you keep on gazing deeper and deeper and deeper, releasing the superimpositions, the projections, the reification, the appropriation, releasing, taking off garment after garment of obscurations, right where you're looking, you will find nirvana and you'll find pristine awareness, and you'll know who you are. And I cannot imagine anything more valuable than that. Anything more revolutionary. And by such realization, I believe even a small number of people might actually be able to change the course of history. It's happened before. A small number of people. Read Solzhenitsyn's Lenin in Zurich. I read it years ago. This was when he was banished from Russia. He was made into exile, forced into exile. Of course, he went to Switzerland. Where else would you go? And he had a small group of followers there in Zurich. This one guy, Lenin, and a small group of buddies. And they changed history. The world will never be the same after the Bolshevik Revolution. And then carrying that right over to China, North Korea, and so forth. Our world will never be the same after it's been bludgeoned by Marxism, beaten by Marxism, and scientific materialism. But a small number of people did that and have done that. So let's be a small number of people and bring about the greatest good we possibly can. But the revolution coming from inside and not remaining ordinary and trying to make the revolution take place outside. Because that just results in more samsara. It's proven again and again and again. But if it comes from inside, that's sustainable. So let's sit quietly. I think just 20 minutes should do it. But let's taste it. And I'll give a little bit of guidance that might be helpful. To tame this wild elephant mind. And of course, if you're a farmer, there's no greater asset than having an elephant. A well-trained elephant. In medieval India, gosh, that's a mighty beast. You can use that to build houses, you can use that to plow fields, you can use it for warfare. I mean, a well-trained elephant, gosh, what an asset. But an unruly elephant is terrifying. So let's tame the mind. As the Buddha said, engage in a bounty of virtue. Utterly avoid non-virtue. Subdue your own mind. That's the teaching of the Buddha. And so it is. And while your mind may remain active, let your awareness be still by relaxing so deeply that you don't exert the effort of appropriating and identifying with thoughts. Simply rest in stillness in the present moment. Let your eyes be open to make sure you don't reinforce the superstition that your mind, your thoughts, your images are inside your head, which is completely baseless. And resting your awareness right where it is without doing anything with it, but just letting it be where it already is. Rest there, loose and free. Aware of being aware. It's effortless. You don't have to try. And without trying, with no effort at all, as you're simply resting here in the present moment, vivid, clear, discerning, wide awake, but not doing anything with your awareness. Effortlessly, the waves of sensation throughout the tactile field, corresponding to the in and out breath, will rise up to meet you. Without trying, you will know when the breath is flowing in, when it's flowing out. And without specifically focusing your attention, the tactile sensation throughout the entire somatic field associated with the in and out breath rise up to meet you. As you breathe in, you're aware of the whole body breathing. The breath goes out, the whole body breathing out. Without thinking about the body, without imagining it, the raw, bare tactile sensations arise up to meet you. And this entire somatic field and the sensations that arise within it are all non-conceptual. They're empty of concepts, empty of language and words. And awareness resting in its own place is empty of words, transcending concepts. But it's discerning, bright, clear, and intelligent, but without thinking. And you might find it helpful to introduce a very gentle oscillation. Every exhalation is an invitation to relax more and more deeply, to loosen up, and ground your awareness in the present moment. Ground your awareness in these tactile sensations of the earth element, of firmness, solidity. And each inhalation is an affirmation of life. You are still living because you're breathing in. An invitation to arouse, to wake up, to be clear and vigilant. But just for a little while. While still sustaining that clarity, then relax again with every out-breath. Arousing and relaxing with each in and out breath. And of course, with the eyes open, you're aware of space. And this is not physical space you're looking at. The space in front of you is a space of awareness in which non-physical events like colors and shapes appear. But this is the space of the mind. And it's in this space that thoughts and all manner of mental events, images and so on, they all arise in the space of awareness, coming and going. So with the rhythm of the breath in the background, and your awareness of awareness resting in its own place in the center, as you attend to the space of the mind, observe the movements that arise there. Thoughts of the past, of the present, and the future. But don't hitchhike with any of them. Don't get carried away by any of them. Let them come and go, freely, unimpededly. But without your awareness moving. Let your awareness be like space. And the thoughts being like clouds scudding across the sky, coming and going, but space does not move. And now and then you're bound to be distracted. A thought will carry you away. No problem. Just recognize it as quickly as you can. And as soon as you've recognized it, relax and observe where the thought vanishes. Observe the stillness where the movement had been and rest there. Let's close the session by dedicating merit. As His Holiness Dalai Lama has been championing for many years now, embracing the theme of universal responsibility. You are all one humanity with one and only one home. And it's up to all of us individually to save this environment, to preserve this environment, and all the beings who live within it. And do what we can individually and collectively. To help alleviate the suffering of the world and do all we can to help others find the true happiness, the genuine well-being that is their heart's desire. And for this, let us achieve enlightenment, the perfect enlightenment of a Buddha, as swiftly as we can, because this is the way to be of greatest possible benefit. Wallace. So I leave you with you'll receive it electronically, about 10 pages of notes and a bunch of suggested reading. So if you're interested in the nature of reality and how we might avert catastrophe for the human race, then there's plenty to keep you occupied for the next 6 weeks. So I hope this is meaningful to you. It's always good to come up for a breath of air and then to dive again. So I'll see you in 6 weeks.